Coming up on Network Africa. At least 26 people dead in Algeria forest fires. U.S. Senator Chris Coons meets Kenya President-elect William Ruto and his opponent Raila Odinga in Kenya. Plus, WHO Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus suggests Tigray crisis ignored due to racism. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Tenyola Shobowale. We begin in Algeria, where at least 26 people have been killed and dozens others injured in forest fires that have devastated the northern part of the country. The country's interior ministry says 24 people died in El Chaf, near the border with Tunisia, as well as a mother and daughter in Setif. Firefighters are still trying to contain several blazes and helicopters are being used to dump water on the flames. According to reports, some 350 residents have been evacuated in various provinces. Algeria suffers from wildfires every year, but the problem has been exacerbated by climate change. And over in Kenya, U.S. Senator Chris Coons has met with Deputy President William Ruto, who was declared the winner of last week's presidential election, as well as his main rival, Raila Odinga, who disputes the result. According to the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, both countries discussed the U.S.-Kenya strategic partnership, promotion of peace and security in the region, and ways to strengthen the two countries' economies. As Deputy President, Mr. Ruto still has official duties to perform, but there was no mention of Mr. Ruto's victory or the dispute around it. The senator also met President Uhuru Kenyatta in what was described as a courtesy call. We'll have more on that story later on. But away from Kenya, the European Union and the Institute for the Conservation of Nature in the Democratic Republic of Congo have accused M23 rebels of shelling and significantly damaging a hydropower plant at a national park. Rebels are said to have used heavy weapons to shell Virunga National Park during deadly clashes with the army on Tuesday in Rutshuru territory in eastern DRC. According to a statement, the EU says it condemns the M23 for sabotage on a public facility that gives electricity to habitants in North Kivu. The EU, which funds the construction of hydropower plants around Virunga Park, called on the M23 to immediately lay down the arms and vacate occupied areas. Since June, M23 rebels have been occupying areas bordering the park, which is home to endangered mountain gorillas. And the United Nations says torrential rains in Chad have killed 22 people and destroyed more than 2,000 hectares of farmland since June, impacting more than 110,000 people in the country. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq says the numbers are expected to rise and calls on donors for their support.
And destroyed more than 2,000 hectares of farmland since June. More than 110,000 people throughout the country are impacted, according to authorities. This number is expected to rise. The city of N'Djamena has the largest number of flood-affected people, with more than 41,000. We, along with our partners, are supporting the government in providing emergency assistance of food, shelter, malaria management, and other critical help. Our humanitarian colleagues note that the humanitarian needs prior to the floods were only funded at 34% as of mid-August. $171 million received out of $510 million needed. A comprehensive response plan has been launched today with support from OCHA, and we're calling on donors for their support.
Well, to health matters and an update on the monkeypox outbreak. The head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, says more than 35,000 cases have now been reported to the WHO from 92 countries and territories, with 12 deaths. According to him, vaccines will play an important part in controlling the outbreak, but to stop transmission, effective public health tools are needed.
The primary focus for all countries must be to ensure they are ready for monkeypox and to stop transmission using effective public health tools, including enhanced disease surveillance, careful contact tracing, tailored risk communication, and community engagement, and risk reduction measures. Vaccines may also play an important part in controlling the outbreak, and in many countries, there is high demand for vaccines from the affected communities. However, for the moment, supplies of vaccines and data about their effectiveness are limited, although we are starting to receive data from some countries.
So we are not expecting 100% efficacy for these vaccines for the prevention of monkeypox. We don't know the exact information. What we're seeing are breakthrough cases, which are not really surprises, but it reminds us that vaccine is not a silver bullet, that every person who feels that they are at risk and appreciates their own level of risk and wishes to lower their own level of risk have many interventions at their disposal, which includes vaccination where available, but also includes protection from activities where they may be at risk.
And to Ethiopia's Tigray conflict, the WHO chief has suggested that racism is behind a lack of attention paid to the plight of civilians in the Tigray region, calling it the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, with 6 million people unable to access basic services. Dr. Tedros questioned in an emotional appeal while the situation is not getting the same attention as the Ukraine conflict. WHO called for $123.7 million to tackle the health problems resulting from growing malnutrition in the region, where around 200 million people live and millions are going hungry.
In terms of humanitarian crisis, I can tell you that the humanitarian crisis in Tigray is more than Ukraine, without any exaggeration. And I said it many months ago, maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people in Tigray. I haven't heard in the last few months, several months now, even a head of state talking about the Tigray condition anywhere, in the developed world especially. Why? I think we know. But the only thing we're asking is, can the world come back to its senses and uphold humanity? If it's the worst humanitarian crisis, and I'm saying nowhere on earth 6 million people are sealed off, nowhere. From basic services, from their own money, from telecom, from food, from medicine. This is the worst disaster on earth as we speak. I am from Tigray. It's not because I am from Tigray that I'm saying this. That's the truth. Of course, there is some peace talks, negotiation, discussion. Even for the peace talks, in order to build confidence in the peace talks, at least the basic services should be resumed. How can peace talks happen when 6 million people are suffocated?
Meanwhile, Beline Seyom, speaking for Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, has denied accusations by Tigrayan forces that they were being targeted by federal troops. On Wednesday, Tigrayan spokesperson Getachew Rada accused the government in Addis Ababa of undermining efforts to find a peaceful solution to the country's civil war by taking provocative actions against forces. But speaking to journalists today, Ms. Seyom described the accusations as deflections and a way to avoid engaging in peace talks. Efforts to bring the warring parties together to end the 22-month conflict in Ethiopia's north have reportedly shown progress in recent months. But in the past few days, the two sides have exchanged strong words, with the Tigrayan forces accusing the government of deliberately delaying talks. And away from Ethiopia, a Rwandan court has ruled that the trial of a former businessman suspected of being one of the masterminds behind the genocide in the country will start on the 29th of September. 87-year-old Felicien Kabuga appeared at a court in The Hague for a pre-trial hearing today. He was detained in France 2 years ago after escaping arrest for more than 2 decades. In the 1990s, Mr. Kabuga was president of a radio station which broadcast calls for the killings of Tutsis. He stands accused of genocide, incitement to commit genocide, and crimes against humanity. The 1994 genocide in Rwanda led to the killing of 800,000 Tutsis and thousands of moderate Hutus. And in West Africa, at least 2 people have been killed in Guinea during a day of protest against the ruling military. Reports from the capital, Conakry, say a teenage boy was shot dead by the security forces as the motorcade of the military leader, Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, passed through the city. An opposition group also says a second young man was also shot. However, police have denied this. Clashes broke out on Wednesday as demonstrators hurled stones at officers who retaliated with tear gas. Several people were also arrested. Guinea's military, which seized power last September, has banned all demonstrations in the country. It has pledged to move to civilian rule within 3 years. And relations between France and Mali have continued to worsen, with the West African country accusing its former colonial power of supplying arms and intelligence to anti-government militants. In a letter to the UN Security Council, Mali's Foreign Minister Abdoulaye Diop says France has violated its airspace on multiple occasions and delivered arms to Islamist fighters in an attempt to destabilize the country. France has rejected the accusations. Ties between the two countries have broken down following 2 coups and a decision by Mali's military rulers to work closely with mercenaries from Russia. On Sunday, France said all its soldiers had now left Mali, where they had been fighting Islamist militants for nearly 10 years. And back here in Nigeria, Realize Global Empowerment Initiative has organized an empowerment program for secondary school girls in Ondo State. The founder of Realize Africa explains that the initiative is aimed at improving capacity attainment of the child girl in the state.
Realize Africa is a Nigerian organization established in 2010 to help individuals, families, and organizations achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Realize Africa ensures that every child has access to quality education and living, and also works to address the needs of pregnant women and nursing mothers with a focus on reducing maternal and infant mortality. For this reason, the NGO is taking advantage of the long vacation to organize an empowerment program for some selected secondary school girls in Ondo State.
It's like a studio, right?
Female professionals from various fields are here to motivate the girls. The program focuses on how the young ones can achieve success in their chosen career.
I found myself in this work. I was not just doing it like a government job. Like she was saying, you have to be passionate about doing what you are doing.
I had science background, of course. I wanted to be a doctor like everybody had said, the story. And along the line, I found out that writing is just an innate ability for me. It's something that I enjoy doing.
In the meantime, the program breaks out into sessions where some discussions on various issues such as women's rights, empowerment, as well as gender equality are deliberated on. The founder of Realize Africa, Dr. Ireti Adeshida, reiterates the idea behind the initiative.
It's like more of a mentorship circle, and that's what we are doing now. So they form a circle with mentors, so that mentors can be able to encourage them, share stories, because For us, we believe so much in storytelling. We don't. It's not going too theoretical. Will not work. So it's good that we have people, adults who have made it, who have passed through their stage.
Some participants appreciate the organizers.
It's about knowing your purpose, having passion for what you feel you can do very much. And I know I like to speak for the less privileged, those who don't have someone to speak for them. So I would love to fulfill this by becoming a lawyer.
To help me in choosing what I want to become in life and how to increase my self-confidence about what I want to do, and also standing out for the rights of femininity in the community.
At the end of the program, the participants were equipped with necessary knowledge needed for them to be relevant in their careers and all-round well-being.
Still ahead on the program. Angola to start talks on trade deal with EU in bid to diversify from oil. More details in a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Let's head back to Kenya now, where we're still following developments in the aftermath of the country's presidential election. We mentioned earlier that U.S. Senator Chris Coons has met with Deputy President William Ruto, who was declared the winner of last week's presidential election, as well as his main rival, Raila Odinga, who, of course, disputes the result. And we have Mohammed Yusuf, who's in Nairobi. He joins us now for more on this. Mohammed, speak to us a bit more about that meeting with Ruto and then, of course, President Kenyatta. This was held separately, right?
Yes, indeed. The U.S. delegation led by Senator Chris Coons. The U.S. delegation, they met the three Kenyan leaders, the president-elect Ruto, the outgoing president Uhuru Kenyatta, and Raila Odinga, former prime minister. They met them separately and they discussed several issues. They commended Kenyans actually for keeping the peace. And also they spoke with the president-elect the need for the two countries to work together on issues of trade, bilateral trade, and building the economies together. And of course, meeting also Odinga, they spoke about building and improving the country's democratic values just days after the conclusion of the presidential vote and, of course, the general election. And so far, of course, generally the country is calm, and it's become very clear the aggrieved parties, in this case Odinga's camp, of course, will be taking the legal battle to challenge the outcome of last week's elections.
Yeah, and a few days after the results were announced, how are Kenyans digesting this amid the dispute, like you mentioned, over the results and the looming legal challenge from Odinga?
Yeah, the schools opened actually today after 2 weeks because of the elections. Many schools, the students went on break because of the elections, and you also may be quite aware some of these elections were taking place in schools. So today schools opened, and of course there's traffic, there's calm, and people are quite satisfied and quite generally happy because they feel now that the country is able to move forward despite the outcome, despite any legal challenge. And that, of course, in the next 2 or 3 days, or 4 days, of course, until Sunday or Monday, Odinga camp, they have until Monday to go to court. And Kenyans are quite happy with that development. And, of course, also generally Kenyan courts, they have never been afraid to give its judgment, whether you are in power or you are not in power. And that happened back in 2017 when it nullified the presidential vote, even though Uhuru Kenyatta was still in power and he was running for a second term. And country is able to move forward. And that is, I think, what the US delegations commended Kenyans for keeping the peace. But also remember in the country that despite the outcome of the Supreme Court, still people need to maintain peace and laws need to be followed. And of course, whether there will be a rerun, whether there will be another election, whether Ruto is confirmed as a president who has won the election free and fair and credible vote, then the country need to move forward together. And that is the message was very clear from the US delegation, but so far Kenyans have heeded to that.
And let's speak about Ruto. He has sort of ignored the dispute over the results in some way. Last night we heard him saying that expectations are huge and there's no time to waste. When will he be sworn into office so he can begin his job?
Of course, if there is no legal challenge, he was announced as a presidential winner on Monday. If there is no legal challenge until Monday, then he's got about a week to be sworn in. But if there's going to be a case is filed at the Supreme Court, then you expect that to go on for another 2 weeks, and that is around September. Then the preparation begins. Of course, he tried to assure the country, even if the court stamp is that he won the election free and fair and credible, then he's able to work with every Kenyans. And he quite reminded the country that he received many votes across the country from all the communities, and he won't be leaving anyone behind. And that is a message so far he has put forward. And of course, he reminded also the civil servants, the public workers, that they need not to engage in politics or anything of that sort, and work to deliver the services the Kenyans expect from them. And he has moved quite fast, and that is what you expect. But also, if you expect the Odingas to go on with their legal battle, trying to put evidence together, and he said that he's ready for that, and he will be, of course, ready to defend his win.
All right, then, Mohammed Yusuf, VOA correspondent, thank you so much for the update. And in West Africa now, let's switch focus to Ghana, where there's been soaring inflation. The country's central bank has announced the biggest rate hike in its main lending rate. This was made known as an emergency meeting to tackle the worsening economic situation in the country.
Ghana's central bank has delivered its biggest rate hike ever amid crippling inflation. At an emergency meeting to address the economy's rapid deterioration, the main lending rate was raised by 300 basis points to 22%. The hike comes just 3 weeks after the Bank of Ghana's Monetary Policy Committee left the rate unchanged at 19%, saying it wanted to observe the impact of a series of record-breaking hikes. Since then, the cedi currency has continued its steep decline, losing more than 6% against the dollar on Wednesday alone. That's according to data from Refinitiv Econ. That brought total losses from 2022 to 39%. Consumer inflation rose to 31.7% annually in July, its highest since 2003. The government's top statistician has warned it's not possible to say whether inflation has peaked. Having initially said it would not turn to the International Monetary Fund for help, Ghana is now in the early stages of negotiating a support package. Razia Khan, chief economist for Africa and the Middle East at Standard Chartered, said the hike could help demonstrate that the West African country is committed to reaching a deal. In a statement on Wednesday, the Monetary Policy Committee partially blamed Ghana's current economic troubles on external factors, including a strong dollar and tighter global financial conditions.
Angola and the European Union are set to start talks for a trade deal this year. According to an EU document and an official, the green light to start negotiations, which would see Angola join a regional trade bloc, came in late July, according to the EU document, shortly before a general election next week. The possible deal would likely increase Angolan exports to the EU, potentially reducing the dominance of oil, which currently accounts for nearly all exports by value. According to an EU spokesperson, they are in a position to open negotiations, but a date has not been agreed with Angola. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shiboale. Bye for now.